I find it really interesting when game developers take these super iconic designs and redesign them. So let's take a look at some redesigns. Street Fighter 6 gave new looks to many of the franchise's most memorable characters, one of the most notable being the face of the franchise, Ryu. Ryu's redesign in Street Fighter 6 is really intriguing, as his design has remained fairly consistent over the years. Now, you guys may not have heard about this, but did you know that there was a game in the Street Fighter series made before Street Fighter 2? It's Street Fighter 1. And this game introduced quite a few characters who would reappear later on, like Adon, Birdie, and of course the Muay Thai champion, Sagat. In this game, Ryu actually wears shoes! This wouldn't happen again until his Street Fighter 6 redesign. He just spent like the last 3 decades running around barefoot on beaches, alleyways, Air Force bases, you name it. I think one of the subtle details you may notice is that Ryu's gi isn't torn on the sleeves or on his pants legs like it is in many of the future games. It's a really nice way to show that he's new and inexperienced here. He hasn't fought in enough battles yet to have wear and tear on his fit. Strangely, his hair is a lot redder here. One of the weirdest things about Ryu is that chronologically in the game's story, over the years his hair got darker and darker. It was red in Street Fighter 1, brown in Street Fighter 2 and Alpha, and it's been black ever since Street Fighter 3. His hair also got way spikier. His hair in the first few Street Fighter games was far more normal looking, and he had really noticeable bangs. But starting with Street Fighter 3, his hair got spikier and then much spikier in Street Fighter 4. Capcom even acknowledged this change in an alternate costume Ryu has in Street Fighter 5, which is based on his appearance in Street Fighter Alpha. The differences are super noticeable here. The only other really notable design change is Ryu's headband, which was originally white but later changed to red in Street Fighter 2. Capcom explained this in Street Fighter Alpha, which takes place before Street Fighter 2, by revealing that Ken gave Ryu the new red headband. Street Fighter 6 is by far Ryu's most unique look yet, rocking sandals as I mentioned before, growing a full beard, and losing his shirt, instead wearing a sash looking thing called a kasaya. While I do like this redesign, it's a nice representation of Ryu's progression, making him look almost sage-like. I think I still do prefer his old outfit, with my favorite being his incarnation in Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Ryu even has a little bit of stubble on his chin, just to show you that he is aging even though he still looks as young as he always has. Let's talk about another spiky-haired protagonist, this time from the Final Fantasy series, Cloud Strife. Cloud has always had a cool design, and it's basically been the same for many years, but there were a few times his design was notably changed. I think the first was actually from Kingdom Hearts, the Final Fantasy and Disney crossover from 2002. Cloud's design is considerably different here. I couldn't find any actual direct sources that claim this, but it's rumored that another Final Fantasy VII character, Vincent Valentine, was originally supposed to appear in Kingdom Hearts, but because he wasn't included, elements of Vincent's design like the cape and the claw hand were incorporated into Cloud's design. Honestly, I think this design is kinda cool. Obviously it has some issues. I think the black wing is a little much, the claw looks kinda silly, and of course, this design has Nomura's signature love of belts. You've got belts on his waist, a belt on his thigh, crisscross belts on his pants legs, but besides that, there are some pretty cool parts too. Capes have and will always be cool. I like how this design takes the asymmetry that Cloud had going on in his original design, like with the huge metal shoulder pauldron and the metal arm brace thing he has on his left side, and takes it up to 11. And admittedly, I've always thought that the bandaged up sword trope was pretty sick. Cloud's next major design change came from the 2005 movie Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, which continues the story of the original game. Once again, Nomura's love of belts is in full effect here, as well as Cloud's asymmetry gimmick, only wearing a sleeve, shoulder pad, and cloak on his left side. I think my favorite little touch that's added to this design is the Fenrir wolf on his pauldron. One thing I like about this design is the really consistent monochromatic palette. He's mostly just wearing shades of black, but you've got the silver belt buckles, silver Fenrir wolf, and silver Buster Sword that add a nice little accent to the whole thing. And of course, his super dark outfits contrast really nicely with his blonde hair. Cloud does have another somewhat notable redesign, and that's his Shinra infantry costume, which shows up in games like Crisis Core, and yeah, I don't particularly care for it. It's fine, The collar is pretty cool. My personal favorite is probably his Advent Children outfit. That's the one I always roll with in Smash Bros. Mario is another character from Smash Bros who's seen his fair share of redesigns over the years. In the original Japanese artwork for 1981's Donkey Kong, Mario's clothes are an inverse of his modern design, rocking red overalls and a blue shirt instead of blue overalls and a red undershirt. He doesn't wear gloves and his hair is black and a lot bushier than it is now. In an English flyer for the game though, Mario does have on his signature white gloves. In Donkey Kong Jr., his design is almost completely the same color-wise, but he's a lot shorter and more cartoony looking here. In Mario Bros, Mario's hat color changed from red to blue, although now he is rocking the blue overalls and red undershirt combo. His design in Super Mario Bros takes things back to how he looked in Donkey Kong Jr., but you can start to see Mario begin to look more and more like he does today. The hair on his head is now brown instead of black, although his mustache is still black. The earliest game I could find where Mario dons his modern color scheme of a red hat with the blue overalls and red undershirt combo is the Famicom port of Mario Bros released on June 21st, 1983. This color scheme doesn't appear in the artwork, but his in-game sprite rocks the iconic colorway, though it doesn't look like he's wearing gloves in this version. I think the game that solidified Mario's design was probably Super Mario Bros. 3. You've got his iconic design plastered right on the front cover, minus the ears and raccoon tail. After Super Mario Bros. 3, Mario's design and artwork for major games and in his actual in-game sprites became what we know him to look like today. Although to be fair, he did look a lot shorter back then. Starting with some of the artwork for Super Mario 64, Mario's legs began to look a bit longer, and I think it's this game where all of the stars aligned from his color scheme, to his proportions, to his hairstyle, to become the Mario that we know and love today. If I'm being real, I kinda wanna talk about Street Fighter some more, so let's talk about a character with the redesign that has the most people talking, Cammy. Cammy's original design from Super Street Fighter 2 is great. She wears combat boots and her iconic green leotard, which contrasts nicely with her red beret and red gauntlets, given red and green are complementary colors. Cammy definitely has a militaristic vibe going on, which fits her backstory as an operative for the British government. There are other cool details that add to her tough special operative persona too, like the scar on her face, her braided hair, and the camouflage paint on her legs. Cammy's moveset is heavily based on her legs, so the fact that she, well, doesn't wear any pants highlights that effectively. Cammy got a pretty significant redesign in the Street Fighter Alpha series. Her green leotard is swapped out for a light blue turtleneck sweater looking leotard. Her hat is changed from a red beret to a light blue garrison hat, and her leg paint is switched from green camo to these sick light blue lightning bolts. This design kinda gives me school uniform vibes, mostly because of the tie and the armband that reminds me of the ones student council members wear in anime, but it fits considering this is a younger Cammy. This design is great. It manages to still keep many of the same design elements and the militaristic spirit of the original Super Street Fighter 2 design, while at the same time highlighting Cammy's inexperience. Cammy's final big redesign, of course, is her new look in Street Fighter 6. This design throws everything out of the window. The leotards, gone. The hats, bye-bye. The long hair, sayonara. Now she has a blue cropped biker jacket, a black sports bra, and black yoga pants. Man, did this design get people acting up, and I can understand why. For one, it just looks really nice. The jacket is really cool and the UK flag on the back is a nice touch. Yoga pants work well because obviously they fit her legs very well, which was obviously a big part of her design, but yoga pants are also a bit more tasteful than a thong leotard. This doesn't really leave much to the imagination, you know? But hey, Capcom made sure Cammy was showing off some skin since she has her abs prominently displayed thanks to her short jacket and sports bra. They kept the combat boots and the gauntlets too, which is a great way to call back to her older designs. Also, from a color perspective, this design works really well too, since outside of the color black, her outfit's color palette consists almost solely of the colors red, white, and blue, the same colors on the UK's flag. This redesign really does represent Street Fighter as a whole. It blends the culture of the character's country with a bit of some new modern spice, as well as some elements of the character's backstory just as a bonus. Alright, I think I'm done talking about designs for the day. Don't worry, I'll be sure to talk about some other cool redesigns in the next episode of this series.